and welcome to the 11th episode of the New Podcast. My name is Steven, joined as always by producer extraordinaire Kelly. Let's get to it. Huge weekend of MMA, tons of events all around the world. M1, Bellator, and obviously UFC last night was a firecracker. Tons of sports to get to. Obviously Survivor Series is today, where it's our pre-Survivor Series episode. Not really going to get into it too much with all that went down this week on Raw and Smackdown. Tons of MMA. It was just with the Russian cards. I keep getting these Russian cards. I wake up on Saturday morning and think, I'm just going to put some TV on while I eat my breakfast, and boom, Russian card. Fight nights, and as opposed to M1, both good events, but if I had to take one or the other, they're both very odd. I'll get to M1 later on. They're both very odd. That's all I can say about those Russian organizations, and I enjoy it very thoroughly. Something a little bit different. Huge, probably the biggest news of the week, though, is what was filled with a week of tons of MMA news. I guess it would have to be Cerrone and Conor McGregor is going to be the next fight. I don't know. Conor McGregor has been documented to have been dodging Cowboy forever. I think it's a really bad fight for Conor. I don't know why he'd want to take that against a banging guy who's really good on the ground too. I could see Cowboy just coming out and just taking him down instantly. I could see that's exactly what's going to happen. And just work him on the ground. Conor got exposed. His ground game is atrocious. And the thing about Cowboy is he'll stand and bang. And what we saw also in Conor's last match is that his jaw isn't the same. He got tagged one good shot by Khabib and it knocked him on his ass. So I don't know. What do you think, Kelly? Do you think the fight happens at all?
I hope so.
I hope so too. I want to see Conor get his ass kicked.
I just love Cowboy, and I think that'd be a great match.
I think Cowboy's looking to get paid. I think everyone wants, because they know Conor's paychecks are going to be starting to run short here soon. And whoever fights him next is really going to still get that big Conor McGregor money. And I think deservedly so. Cowboy deserves that, absolutely. I think Cowboy wins wholeheartedly, very easily. I think he wins second round, third round, even, take him in deep water. That's what Cowboy's been known for, is the indispensable gas tank, the gas tank that just goes forever. And I see easy money for Cowboy. That's all I got to say, easy money. We also have the news of Nick Diaz's return. And who is he facing? One of my favorite of all times, Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. Love the dude. What I don't like about Jorge these days is his Facebook page. It used to be like the coolest Facebook page. Don't get me wrong. Listen, hear me out on this, Kelly. Hear me out on this. He had the coolest Facebook page for fights. For just random fights, street fights, underground organized fights, even, like bare knuckle backyard fight. He had the setup on the fights. He had cool fights all the time. Now all he has is fucking clickbait. Come on, Jorge, you're better than this clickbait shit, man. Come on. It's always like, watch, this, it'd be like a big fight coming up, and like he gets and the guy who everyone's rooting for, he got knocked out in training. All the fans are shook. That's like the headline, and it's clickbait, and it's like something from like 6 months earlier. Had nothing to do, and it wasn't even it was just like a kind of like a mild knockdown. So the clickbait shit's got to stop, Jorge. Come on, you're better than that, man. Get back to what you're good at. It was the coolest. I was always telling my buddies, man, check out this shit on Jorge's Facebook page. I don't know who's running his Facebook page, but the guy's got the sources for the scraps. He was like a ex-World Star employee or something like that. That still had the password for their computer to log in and get all the World Star videos. I don't know. And we had another huge thing in the news, MMA news this week, was that the Mayweather-Tenson fight is back on. How fucking weird is this? What is? And now it's just like a boxing match, an exhibition boxing match. I say boo, Floyd Mayweather. That's a pussy way out. If you're going to have an exhibition match that doesn't mean anything, it doesn't count, have an MMA match. It's up against a dude who's just a kickboxer. Have an MMA match. Why not? It's exhibition. You got nothing to lose, man. It's not going to count towards your record. Whatever. You lost in MMA. No one gives a shit. You're not an MMA fighter. Not the end of the world. He should have went about it that way. Maybe there wasn't enough money on the table to say, we'll give you MMA money. You know what I mean? It's Floyd Mayweather. The fact that he is boxing in this match alone is quite odd to begin with. But like I said, what's more odd is that fight is back on. You go from him taking pictures in Japan, having a press conference saying this is going to be super cool, posters, to him flying home and saying, nah, I was blindsided, not happening, and now to saying, yeah, it's happening, but it's just an exhibition boxing match. This thing's getting a little bit weird here, Floyd, and I think it all has to do with you. But if you want to talk about weird fights in Japan, put Floyd Mayweather against Charles Bennett, Crazy Horse. Now that's a fight that would put asses in seats. Crazy Horse versus Floyd Mayweather, that would be an awesome MMA fight. I think he would get destroyed. Or even a boxing match. Give Texas Crazy Horse there, Charles Bennett, one of the coolest fighters. If you haven't seen him, check him out. He just got a ton of losses, and the dude's a weird dude, but he's a big name in Japan. Two people that had their careers ruined recently, these Sherdog, man. These guys do not let up with their prospect watch. Now another guy, Tyler McGuire, they've acquired. Mark these names down, because this is a guy who's going to lose his next fight. Sherdog out there ruining careers. I tell you, man. I tell you. What else do we have this week? Oh, craziness with Israel Adesanya. Did you hear about this, Kelly? He's in talks right now to get the next title shot. I think it's a money problem right now. I know. How does he just goes right up in there. Kelly called it, though, of course. And who saw that? I didn't expect it. I thought maybe another fight, but yeah, man. Title shot for him. And I guess it's just a money thing. And who wins? Gastelum. Who do you think he matches up better against, Gastelum or Robert Whittaker? That's a tough matchup. I think it would have to be Whittaker he'd match up better against, because he's a stand-up fighter too. Where Kevin Gastelum, you know what I mean, he's got heavy hands and good wrestling. I don't know if Adesanya, you know, he did do good against Derek Brunson, but Derek Brunson was obviously sloppy in that. You know what I mean? I just think the easier matchup for him would be to stand and bag and take his chances with Robert Whittaker. What do you think, Kelly?
Oh, man, it's hard to say, especially when he's never competed at that level before.
Mm-hmm.
Getting the title shot, obviously, is because he's where the money is right now. You know, he's super popular, especially coming after his last fight, just destroying Derek Brunson. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's going to have problems against both of them.
Yeah, that's no doubt. No doubt about that.
I have no idea.
I just think Gastelum gives him more problems. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, just based on that solely alone. You know, I just think his striking is obviously his strong point. He's not going to do any good on his back. You know what I mean? But either way, you don't really want to stand and trade with Whittaker. He's got power in his feet and in his hands too. So it's one of those things where it's obviously a double-edged sword. But I think it's odd that he's getting the title shot, honestly, to begin with. You know, I think a Ramiro would have been a good matchup for him. I guess he's not getting that. Maybe Ramiro is injured a little bit too. Just a rumor right now. Huge rumor, though. Huge rumor. Biggest news of the week, though, by far, in the world of any kind of news, maybe sports, is that they're opening an Arby's location in our area. It's coming back. Arby's is coming back, people. This is it. Huge news. Tawasin is where it's going to be.
Oh, that's pretty far.
It is pretty far. Still, I know it's still something. It's going to be across the street, across the street from that new Mega Mall down there. So
finally, people will go to Mega Mall. That's why they're doing it.
Exactly. They're trying to get the Arby's. Exactly.
Once you get the Arby's, the people will come.
I know. I'd agree. I'm there if you got Arby's. I went to Metrotown just because of Arby's too. Never went to the Coquitlam Mall because of Arby's, though. Never went to that one. Can't wait to have me in Arby's again. Can't wait. Sweet, sweet Arby's.
Can't wait.
Gonna get me some Arby's. I caught the last 3 episodes of Castlevania. Really, really good show. They made up for all the lack of action on the previous 5 episodes, which was, so the last 3 was just lights out amazing. Really did a good job with the lack of action. It was just got right back to the roots. Everything seemed to click. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. Maybe I'll talk about it later on another time, but I don't want to ruin it since the show's just brand new. But man, really, really good. They rounded it out to lead on to more shit with the next season, and they really tied it with a nice little bow at the end. But no one does better vampires better than an anime and Japanime, man. Those they got it. They got going on when it comes to the vampires for some weird reason. It just works with their style. One of my favorite movies of all time is that's the thing about anime. It's only about like 5% of it is good. Out of 95% of it is pure trash. It's just absolutely atrocious, unwatchable shit. But 5% of it is really good stuff. It's really good. And Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, the second Vampire Hunter D, was an amazing movie. Art-wise, action-wise, it had that perfect mixture of gore and art, and it just blew me away. The character development, the story, everything was super good about it. Absolutely love that movie. And this kind of has a feel of it. But yeah, I'm really liking the new watch it. I can't wait for the next season, and it's probably going to be another year before it comes out. But I got to check that out. Had a busy weekend with watching TV. Man, hard gig over here. I had to watch all these sports events, all these TV shows. Enjoyed myself. Obviously, with the release of Fallout, it's going to be lots of talk about Fallout. I even said that. It obviously took a lot of my time this week playing video games, obviously, with the release of Fallout 76. I got a whole whackload of shit to talk about with that. Great weekend, though. Great weekend. Unfortunately, Kelly had to work. Always working for the man over here. Working for the man.
Working for the man in the city.
Working on my night moves. Ooh, ooh. I love Bob Seger. Let's see if that makes the cut. With all the MMA, let's talk some mixed martial arts. Start off with Friday, Bellator. It wasn't a terribly stacked card. Unfortunately, like I said, it come Friday night, my cable goes out, and the recording didn't record. I still at least caught the replay of the other fights, but man, oh man, was I ever upset. Technology, first world problems over here. But it wasn't a bad card. It was a super huge stack card. In Israel, that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? I think the Israel crowd always comes out to show too. And Bellator is kind of, spreading their wings a little bit. Find these little pockets around the world where it's feasible to have these fight events and to sell the shows out and put on a good product. Undercard definitely wasn't that deep. Obviously, being in Israel, they're going to have a bunch of local nobodies. Phil Davis loses, he's had up against another grappler. That's the thing, Phil Davis isn't that great against grapplers. I could see why the UFC was so easily to cast him off. Phil Davis is just kind of one of those weird fighters. He's like one of those guys, you see a lot of it, Kelly, is that they're an amazing in the gym, tearing everybody apart. In the weight room, they're there when the place opens and they're there when the place closes, and they're pushing the most reps, the heaviest weights. They step foot in the ring underneath the lights, and they don't have it. You know what I mean? Upstairs, they don't have it. They can't. They're overthinking. They're underthinking. They're not mentally prepared. And I think Phil Davis is one of those dudes. Oddly enough, it's so weird. He has all these bad performances all the time. I think his Ryan Bader match was that too, where he just got fucking manhandled. And you don't see that with Phil Davis. It's really, really weird. But, not taking anything away from Vadim Nenkov, he did win that match. Ryan Couture keeps getting all these opportunities, especially, good for him. He's out, he did win his match. That was kind of a slow fight. He's not, Ryan Couture just isn't that great of a fighter, unfortunately. And I think Bellator needs some kind of his name is Couture, you know what I mean? So his star power will carry him far in this, and how far I don't know. He's not the best of fighter. Let's be honest, not that great of a fighter, and I don't know if you can teach that. I think he's a decent grappler. I think that's where his dad was much better. Randy Couture was an amazing grappler, even though he did get out grappled sometimes. He was an amazing grappler and a good striker, where Ryan Couture is neither. Unfortunately, I think he's just fighting off his dad's name, and maybe he'll find his sometime, but his jaw's never been that good. I think his jaws, he's been hit pretty hard sometimes, and he's fallen down hard. The main event I did get to watch it to its entirety, and it was fireworks. It was a really, really good main event. I love that matchup between Patricky Freire, Pitbull, and Emmanuel Sanchez. It was kind of a cool, both their nicknames. Sanchez is the Matador, and Patricio is the Pitbull, so it was kind of a cool, they didn't play off that enough, you know what I mean? I think they should have played off that a little bit. It was a real barn burner of a match. Did you watch it, Kelly?
No.
Yeah, Manuel Sanchez, he was really, when they're doing the announcements, you know what I mean? They're in the ring and each fighter's being announced. He was really cranking on his nipples like crazy. I think, like going for like the John Jones thing or something. I don't know. But he was going for like a good few minutes. I was like, okay, I don't know if you need to keep doing it. We get it. You're like got some kind of superstitious thing going on. But let go. Let go. I gave the first round to Sanchez, the second round Pitbull. They both came out firing. It was an amazing match. It was really, really good. I was really impressed with Sanchez's output. And then at the same time, I was super impressed with Patricio's takedowns. That little inside trip takedown, he was doing such a beautiful takedown. The way he just really would let him pull back and then pull forward. That's such a good technique to use especially when you're going for a trip. To use the person's own force against them, it just works out beautifully. And he was just landing that takedown with ease as well, using his size and strength to his advantage. Pitbull was amazing, and I've watched a lot of his fights, and I haven't seen him do takedown that much. He just found something that works so well for him. He's got it in his mind, and he's going with it in his work. And we saw this in full display with this event. It was very super amazing. But Sanchez was a game fighter, much taller and lankier. I was super just impressed with how tough he was. Third round was a straight toss-up in my eyes, and I gave the fourth to Sanchez. So, once again, we have a great fight going into the fifth round with its 2-2, and Pitbull just came up huge, connected with that huge left, and Sanchez was lucky to have survived that fight. Gave him nothing but heart from that guy. Great fight, and the decision goes to Patricio. I don't know. I think he's maybe in talks of moving to the UFC. He really wants to fight Jose Aldo. That's who his big matchup is. He wants to be known as the best 145 of all time from Brazil. So he wants that Jose Aldo fight. And I think that's an amazing matchup. I really like that matchup. Get a little bit of beef between each other. Maybe we see a trade as well. Maybe we see Jose Aldo being traded to Bellator. That's a huge addition for Bellator, and then a huge way to cast away a guy who's maybe past his prime a bit in Jose Aldo. I think Bellator makes sense for Jose Aldo because I think they're going to play hardball with them come contract talks next time with the UFC. Give me a little drink here. How's our water sponsorship is doing amazingly, man. Those water guys, they really know how to free water. That's what they got.
For life.
For life, I know.
It's amazing.
Thank you, people at the water board. We'll see if we'll do some more water commercials this week. That water money, though, I tell you. I've been doing recently is boiling water. Changed my world, man. Changed everything. Boiled water. Put a tea bag in that.
Boiled water is called steam.
Oh, man. I'll take a bowl of steam, please. Thank you. Saturday morning, and it was just really cool to see some M1. A really weird card in Russia, as they all are. It was in like it was kind of odd because the first thing I noticed was that they didn't have ring girls at this one. Where Fight Night's global, there was tons of girls everywhere, like a ring girl attire. There wasn't a single one, so I'm wondering if it was in more of an Islamic States type area there or something like that. You know what I mean? And but they had like these weird like dancing guys with like the big professional big woolly hats, not like the Khabib hats, but like similar to that. And one guy would walk around the ring holding up the thing, and the other guy would do his dance in the middle of the ring every single round. And they would bring the fighters out too. You know what I mean? These guys would come out with the fighters, and they would be doing all the backstage stuff. It was very, very, very odd. Very, very odd. I know. It wasn't like the Macarena. It was like this weird, like traditional Russian dance. I was very, very weirded out by it. It took me a little while to figure out what was going on. It took me a little while. But you keep doing you, Russia. You keep doing you. It's very interesting. That's why I like it. It's just different. You would never see that shit. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting. I would love to go see an event in Russia. That'd be super cool. It was weird because Ian Freeman, who's an MMA fighter, former MMA fighter, I think he actually beat Tito Ortiz back in like the early 2000s in the UK. He's the announcer, like the ring announcer, and also the color commentator, and also like the in-ring like interviewer guy. So he's got like all these different jobs that he's doing. He must be making a killing or something. I hope those Russians paid him well. But he wasn't a great commentator. but he wasn't terrible. He was just kind of more overcommitting to all these submissions, saying like, "Oh, it's in." No, it wasn't even close to in. He just kept on saying that the whole time.
Maybe that's not what he was talking about.
No. It's like, Ian, your mic's still on. He's like backstage. But it still was lining up with the fight perfectly. You know what I mean? You could do like a skit like that. You know what I mean? You can't say he was with one of the ring girls because the ring girls weren't there either. So I was like, who's he back there with? Speaking of the ring, I really do like the M1 ring. It's different. You know, I always like different shit. And it's like an octagon, but it's got ropes. I don't know if you've seen it, Kelly, but the bottom, because where the last rope hits the canvas, there's like a cage down at the bottom. So if you're grappling and you're pushing somebody up against it, you're not going to get pushed out. That was always a problem in Pride, where they'd have to restart the match if they got pushed out too far. Then they had to restart in the middle, both like, you know, in same position, but just in the middle of the ring. Both ways work, but I think this just eliminates that and keeps the pace going, having it at the bottom, but you still get the rope-a-dope and the view with just having the ring. I like the ring, and when we went to Affliction, they had a ring, and the only shitty thing was the cameraman. I think the cameraman, you know, no matter what, especially being on the floor, having the cameraman in the way all the time sucks. But when I went to UFC, I was more in the seats, so I had a good view, but there's still that top rail kind of gets in your way a little bit. But it was still both events were very, very enjoyable. It was really cool to be there live, obviously. But it was actually a decent card in Russia. It was kind of a cool rule as well. They also had with the weird ring was if you come in overweight, you're automatically your first round you're deducted a point. So you lose a point automatically. So you're already fighting behind, which I like that. You know what I mean? Because to kind of combat, they've, you know what I mean, all these, you know, like that stat of all these overweight fighters coming in and winning, and usually in finishing fashion, this would help combat that. Because now you have a better chance of losing the fight, and it promotes more it promotes more action as well by both fighters. One person's going to be fighting more, the other person obviously in turn has to fight more as well. The main event was actually okay, but the fight I really liked was the fight just before. It was the heavyweights. A lot of lighter cards, lighter fighters on this one. But the cool one, they just bring in all these Brazilians. It's always like a Russian versus Brazilian. They just bring in all these Brazilians to fight these Russians. I think it works. I think it's a good little strategy they got going on. Whoever their talent dude is, they just have some guy that lives in Brazil and sends talent their way. If that's his gig, he's doing a good job. He's actually doing a good job because it's a good mixture of talent and skill with some good local fighters from Brazil fighting these good local fighters from Russia. And I really enjoy it, actually. But the heavyweight fight was Clinton Abreu versus Anton Voyagin, and the Anton dude was huge. He was huge, but they both weighed in at pretty heavy too. But Clinton was just so good on the ground, and he was really mixing up his head movement with some good striking. And he had a really slick armbar. That's the reason why I'm going to mention this fight. He had a real slick armbar from Mount, where he kind of had just. And by this time, Anton was exhausted. That's why I was kind of really disappointed in his showing, because he was talking a lot of smack beforehand about how tough he was. And he basically gassed out after 2.5 minutes. but he was huge, and Clinton kind of took over from there with it was a really cool armbar from Mount, where he'd almost like kind of bent his arm sideways, kind of had his knees really high up, so almost like his knees were at his ears. And then with his arm pointing straight upwards, he kind of just wrenched on his arm to one side on the reverse pivot of the elbow. And the dude tapped right away. It looked like it was quite painful, actually. Good. So the beauty about jiu-jitsu and grappling and pancrase and catch wrestling, all that shit, just the different shit. You don't have to go by the textbook. Whatever works, works. And I think that's kind of a thing of life. Whatever works for you works. Do it.
Just do it.
Do it. Main event was 145. It was kind of a weird, because it was like they had like a kind of this Mikhail Sealander, who was the guy who was fighting for the belt. It almost seemed like he hadn't really fought in M1 really before, and he was kind of just coming out of nowhere. It wasn't a bad fight, though. They had a high pace with both dudes, but it did kind of tire near the last 2 rounds. They both the dudes were pretty tired. Alexander Dolshchuk guy, he was like the local, like, I guess they have like a huge amateur MMA kind of government funded thing going on in Russia, because you always hear about he placed this, he got gold in this amateur event in his local state, or he got silver in his amateur MMA in his local state. So I thought it was like they must really be pushing it on like a grassroots level. And I think that's where Russia is going to just have this huge surge of fighters coming right now with tons and tons of people, because they're just, I think if they're promoting it federally, if they're promoting it and giving people money in the training facilities to train, which Russia has done in the past, we're going to see a lot of Russian heavyweights coming down the pipe here. And just from sheer volume, they have such the huge population over there, which makes them tougher, especially with gyms. You just have more talent, more people of a higher talent to push you harder. And the cream that rises to the top has such a hard time getting up there that only the best of the best gets up there. And I think that's what we're going to see. And I think what we're going to see, we're going to see a bit of a takeover with the KSW, the M1s, the Fight Nights. They're going to start seeing more people with this crazy influx that's going to happen with all these 125 guys going. I think the free agent market is going to really explode into something insane right now. Not a bad card, though. I did enjoy it. Let's get to the main event of the evening. UFC Argentina did not disappoint. I was going in with the lowest of expectations, so I think that's why it really blew me away how awesome of a card it was. There were so many finishes, I was like, they're going to be done in like an hour and a half here and still have like another hour and a half of nothing but space. They were really trying to fill some space on this one. Great card, though. Really, really good card. I didn't get to check out the undercard, but it looks like there was nothing but finishes on that, too. Few decisions, tons of finishes. Michael Prazesis guy, he got a quick guillotine choke in the first round. That's a huge win for him. I think his nickname is the Tractor. He's really a really good fighter. The fight I really like, the Cynthia Calvillo, that choke she sunk in, really, really good choke. I was really, really impressed with her ingenuity when it comes to it. As I just had said before, about just getting the choke in, getting what works. It doesn't have to be textbook. Get what works, and if it makes the person tap, you've won. That's all that matters at the end of the day. What I should get to first, though, is you're trying to promote this card, UFC, and you want people to watch it, and this is the announce crew you give us. Jimmy Smith. Again, I have said how terrible this guy is as a color commentator. Terrible. I don't know how he gets fired by Bellator and UFC picks him up. Fucking super confused by it. Joe Rogan B is what he is. He's like Joe Rogan C. He's like Joe Rogan's stunt double who can't talk. Get rid of him, Jimmy Smith. And then they have the other dude with them. I don't even know the guy's name. He is the worst. They had like the worst commentating crew for this one. And M1's commentating crew was terrible too. But they have an excuse. They suck. It's M1. UFC is the big leagues here. And this is the commentating crew you guys give us. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Damn it, UFC.
He's like the beta version of Joe Rogan.
Exactly.
Like, they're testing him, and then they're like, no, this sucks.
No, Joe Rogan had like a laboratory baby. And like sped up the growth, but something went wrong. And it always was like a quarter of his strength.
That's good.
He tried to clone himself through with like mixed, but he mixed in like some CBD oil or something like that, and it didn't turn out. The experiment was a failure.
Or DMT.
Exactly. But like I said, UFC is the big leagues. Get some better people in there, man. Get some better people in there. I don't want to see Jimmy Smith. He's not that good. Very nice guy, I'm sure. Not that good on the mic. I'm sorry. And yes, I could do better. Yes, I could. Anybody out there saying that? Yes, I could do better. What was the next fight after that one? Yeah, that was a really good fight. Marlon Vera, I think he was from Ecuador, versus Guido Canetti, who was, I think he was Argentinian. Yeah, he was Argentinian. Man, did those guys go to crazy. It was fucking dynamite. Explosive first round. Canetti was rocking Vera, and then boom, Vera comes back in the second with that crazy knee and just drops him. The ref had no choice. He gets the choke, and I thought the ref was going to stop him before that. He really gave him the benefit of the doubt. Those guys had the crowd bumping that whole fight. Obviously being the local fighter, but still, man, that crowd was just going crazy. I always forget too, especially in Europe, they don't do it as much, but in South America, when they boo, they whistle. Especially you see it in Brazil. When you hear all this whistling, I'm like, oh, why is there this? I'm like, oh, all right, because they hate him. I guess because Ecuador is so close. But it was a well, they really hate him. They had this one card it was more in the Amazonas state in Brazil, and they had like some crazy whistles. There was some whistling going on throughout the entire match, and it was almost like people were doing bird calls to each other or some shit. It was really I thought it was interesting because these whistles were so fucking loud. That's just just from the place they're from. I guess whistling was a big deal back in the day, and it's just kind of been one of those things that's hereditarily or handed down through generations as how to whistle really well, just because they're in the jungle and shit.
I don't know. I'm not gonna try.
You can't whistle?
No. Well, I can kind of, not really. I'm not good at it. Show off.
The key is to when you breathe in to whistle sometimes, and when you breathe out to whistle.
Seems complicated.
I met a lot of adults. I was like, because my kids can't whistle, and they're always like, well, how do you whistle? And I'm like, it's hard to explain. It's kind of hard to explain how it works. I'm not even exactly sure how it works.
Just do it.
Well, it's just like how you place your tongue, but it's hard to explain. You know what I mean? But then I was like talking to the guys at work, and they're like, no one at my work can whistle. I'm like, what's wrong? Oh, shit. All right, the Vera versus Kennedy. I hope those guys win a fight of the night bonus. They both brought in very underground dudes to get a good opportunity. That's what the UFC is all about, to get your big opportunity now. Show what you have, showcase, and then next time UFC comes to Brazil, or maybe they go to Ecuador or Colombia or somewhere else, you'll definitely be the first one they call up. And that both these guys are both getting a call up next time UFC goes to town. They better. Cesar Fiera, Mutante, I think he won his season or something like that back in the Ultimate Fighter, versus Ian Heinisch. They actually had a good fight. I thought Heinisch was definitely the better fighter. He had more of the gas tank. Cesar, we're not seeing him obviously on his downslide. He was never really that great of a fighter to begin with. He's had some big wins, but he just fails to keep getting traction, unfortunately. He'll get a win, get a loss, get 2 wins, get a loss. It's a shame because he's a good fighter and usually brings it, but you can see time is catching up to him, and he kind of had where he got dummied just a little bit, and he was really wobbly-legged for quite a period of time after that. Big win for Ian. He really came, especially in the third round. Cesar kind of was saved by the bell 2 times in a row, so he could have easily lost that match, and obviously had to go to the unanimous decision to Ian. Good showing for him, and we'll see who he fights next. The fight I really want to talk about, did not see this coming. Johnny Walker versus Khalil Roundtree. I thought Roundtree, Johnny Walker, first of all, he's Brazilian. Straight Brazilian. You know what I mean? Has a super thick Brazilian accent, Kelly. But his name's Johnny Walker. The least Brazilian name ever. Either his dad really loved whiskey, or he really loves whiskey and legally changed his name. I think he actually trains and lives in the UK. But still, I want to know what the story is on that. Was he born Johnny Walker? Either way, the dude can fight. And he's 6'5", and the dude just murdered him. That was a straight beatdown. That tie clinch was so tight. The elbow, the knee he threw in there. And that was Khalil's undoing, was he was so worried about the knee, he didn't expect that huge, heavy elbow to come on him. Man, oh man, was that elbow ever huge. I love when Khalil hit him in the leg, with a leg kick. Looked like a strong leg kick, and he kind of like, ow! He grabs his leg, he's like, that really hurt. I thought that was funny. He's making the list. I'm putting him on the list right away. This guy, you shot right to the top of the list here, man. Johnny Walker, if that is really your name, whatever happened to your real name or whatever, man, you're on the list. You're on the and new prospect watch list. That's the list. Top number 1 killers, natural born killers. That's what we'll call it. And new natural born killers list.
One thing I did see is he left his head open in the tie clinch, kind of like Ben Saunders did in his last fight. And what was his opponent's name?
Khalil Roundtree.
Roundtree. He did land 1 punch while he was in the clinch. but then he stopped and he just tried to kind of break
Yeah.
free. I wonder if he kept trying to land that punch, if he could have knocked him out. And then like you were saying, like when he got kicked, he kind of rubbed his leg, and then he got kicked again. He kind of did leave his leg kind of open and check it as well. I kind of found those two things, but we'll see. I think he is a beast, and obviously he is super confident.
Mm-hmm. I just think to knock out Roundtree, who's had a very durable chin, to knock him out cold, that's a huge power play.
Absolutely,
that's a huge power play. No, I totally agree with what you're saying. That's the downside. That's why you don't see the clinch very often anymore, because you leave your head open for a left hook of a dude. I think it only really works if you're much, much taller. If he can fight another dude who's much taller, he was a good amount taller than Roundtree. But still, you're going to leave yourself up for one of the most deadly attacks, which is a left hook or a right hook with that tie clinch. I think that's what he did well, was made it so Khalil had to go on the defense rather than even think about offense, because his knees were so deadly, and then to land that elbow at the end. But you're 100% right. He, you know what I mean? That's the problem with the tie clinch, is that you leave yourself open so terribly, but used effectively, like we saw there. Huge win for this dude, though. Johnny Walker, man, coming through. What I thought was the funniest thing about this guy is he didn't, in his post-fight interview, he didn't want the money. He wasn't, he didn't want the $50,000 bonus. He didn't want to call out the champ or call out anybody. He begged to be on the next video game. That was his big thing. He's like, I just want to be on the video game. I thought that was a super cool move by him. Very, very classy. You kind of see, it seems like he's a little goofy, right? You know what I mean? I think that's what you want to see. These positive role models come out, and being the goofy guy is a good thing rather than being the chauvinistic piece of shit douchebag type guy, right? I think that's what this guy brings to the table, and he looks like he's a straight natural born killer. The new natural born killers list. We found the name, organically just came. Brings us to the co-main event of the evening: Lamas versus Elkins. That was a good fight. I thought this matchup was gonna be a better matchup for Elkins. I thought this was a perfectly suited fight for him, because what we've seen in the past is Ricardo Lamas kind of get out wrestled by wrestlers, and then that being his undoing, especially with the output and the pace you got to keep up with Elkins. That's tough for anybody to do. And I couldn't have been more wrong. Once again, I couldn't have been more wrong. I never have a problem admitting when I'm wrong on this show. When I'm right, I'm right. When I'm wrong, hey man, I'm wrong. That's the thing about fighting, is a flip of a coin. I thought that was one gleaming thing that came out to me, was how deep 145 is. If Ricardo Lamas is ranked only 13th, that's a super low ranking for him. He's had a few losses, but still he's a really, really good fighter, a game fighter. I would say he's top 10, number 10, closer to the top 10 at least. I guess maybe his loss to Emmett makes him lose a bit of his. Oh, okay. Let's break down the 6 degrees of separation. Ricardo Lamas. All right. Well, obviously with his win against Elkins, he did have 2 losses. One by split, then the KO by Josh Emmett. Mirsad Bektik, he lost by split decision in June. He knocked out Jason Knight. He submitted Charles Oliveira. He lost a decision only to Max Holloway. He beat Diego Sanchez. He lost to Chad Mendes, so he got knocked out by TKO by Chad Mendes. Beat Bermudez. Hakron Diaz he beat. Lost to Jose Aldo. Only a decision though. That's what I thought was weird, because the guy did fight for the belt. I could have swore he fought for the belt at one point, and he did up against Jose Aldo. But then went on a tear before his loss to Jose Aldo. Beat Eric Koch, Hatsuhioki, Cub Swanson. He arm triangle choked Cub Swanson. Beat Matt Grice. He's got one hell of a good resume. That's why I thought, rank 13th. I thought that was an incredibly low ranking for him. I know he's lost 2 of his last 3, but it's only 2 of his last 5 has he only lost 2. So I thought that was weird. I guess he opened up a new gym too. So Ricardo Lamas will retire a fighter, and that's good for him. He just seems like an all-American tough dude, and I think that's what you got to see more in the UFC. He's very similar to Frankie Edgar. I don't think they ever fought, actually. Yeah, they've never fought. Very similar styles. Maybe they'll be fighting in the future. When I was noticing his feet movement and his head movement, I really thought of Frankie Edgar. 2 dudes, very similar fighting styles, but put on a really good fight. Elkins was working his clinch, doing what he does best. And that's why I thought, oh man, he's doing exactly what he's gonna do. He's gonna ground him out, drag him into deep water, and Lamas just managed to find his range and was just tagging Elkins, really exposing. I think that's what he knew. His mental awareness kicked in, and he realized, I'm not gonna out wrestle Darren Elkins. I gotta win this on the feet. And that's exactly what he did. He took him to town with the kicks, and especially with that 1-2 punch that was landing. It was just far too much. And obviously the leg kicks. So he just decimated him with leg kicks as well, as we saw in the main event. But the bully was just too much for Elkins. He went for that takedown at the perfect time, did exactly what he did. Kind of knew Elkins' leg was beat up, and he was tired from the beat down on the face. Took that shot instantly, instant takedown, caught him off guard. Beautiful quick takedown. Couldn't have been more of a textbook shot from there with the quickness in catching him off guard. Beautiful takedown, and rounded up for ground and pound for the TKO win. Huge win. He's got to go top 10 now, if not number 10. I'll give him number 10, because they had some guys at number 9 and number 10 who I didn't even know who they were. I was like, how did these guys get so high? Who do they beat? They're like not like all American named, fighters. They were just, from different countries. So I was like, who are these guys? Where have they got all their wins from? Brings us to the main event of the evening. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Neil Magny.
Magny.
Great fight. Ponzinibbio, he really did it for his home crowd. The size difference is huge. Neil Magny is such a huge 170, such a game fighter. And I think that's why this was a huge stepping stone for Santiago, if he could do it, because he's really been rattling off some wins here recently too. But just Santiago is owning on the feet, especially with that jab, obviously the leg kicks. Once again, we see these leg kicks add up, and he really controlled the pace. He was really in Magny's face, forcing him to do something, but Magny was a bit hesitant on his shots. With the kicks and the punches, you can see his corner was just constantly yelling on, be first. And that's what we didn't see. And when he was using his aggression, he was really landing some shots and keeping Ponzinibbio at bay. But I think he got countered once or twice, and I think his face, like you touched base on earlier, Kelly, I think his face did get broken, because after that shot, he didn't want to be punched anymore. He didn't want to be punched anymore at all. Most people don't want to be, but these guys are fighters who take punches for a living. But that clashing of heads midway through the second, I think it only really kind of saved Magny a little bit, because it kind of slowed Santiago down, because it really cut above his eye really bad. Terrible clashing of the heads. But up into that, Santiago was landing some good, crisp shots to the punches. The fourth, you could see become the fourth, taking all those leg kicks, the jab, everything was just too much. He could barely stand. You could see he was eventually in a lot of pain, and eventually led to that crazy KO. He's just favoring his leg too much. You favor your leg that too much, he's going to lower his hands, and then boom, Santiago just too much. The dude's stock skyrockets. You're on a huge stage in front of your hometown. That's what the UFC wants to see. Like I touched base on before with Phil Davis, the mental toughness. And Santiago has that in spades. Dude is going to be vying for the belt next coming up here. He's one of the big up-and-coming contenders right now. And I'm huge on the Santiago Ponzinibbio fucking train here. He's going to be a good fighter, man. And to come down, he's rattled off 7 wins in a row here in the UFC. He did lose to Lorenz Larkin. He got actually TKO'd by Lorenz Larkin, but that's a tough fighter for anybody. Lost to Ryan LaFleur, but I think those losses shape you. Having losses, especially at the beginning of your career, those will make it so that you see the undefeated fighter. Sometimes the stress of having that one loss, it weighs onto them so much that they can't perform properly. And I think with that, all those wins are really gonna add up here. Court McGee, Zach Cummins, Nordine Talib, Gunnar Nelson knocked out, Mike Perry, and then Neil Magny. That's a damn good little resume for the 170 division. And obviously, I think he did call out Tyron Woodley, but obviously everyone wants to fight Tyron Woodley, especially Santiago's only ranked 10th, so highly doubt that. But what Woodley touched base on was, hey, maybe you will be up there. There's a guy gets an injury, somebody else gets injured, you got to step in the last second. That's what he kind of touched base on. You got to make yourself available in case Colby Covington gets injured, or the next contender match, one dude gets injured and you become also the number one contender for winning that match. So whatever happens next, he's going to get a top 4 fight, and if he wins that, he will get a title shot. I can guarantee that one. Huge win for him though. What's to come for him? We will find out. I don't know, maybe Robbie Lawler. I say Robbie Lawler. I think he's going to get the winner of whoever Dos Anjos is fighting. Who is Dos Anjos fighting here again? That's a card that's coming up here. We'll find it later on here. Either way, I think Dos Anjos would be an easy matchup for him too, because he's just so big. Dos Anjos is kind of a smaller 170. He's surprised me before in the past, but Santiago's he's pretty big for 170. Neil Magny was massive for 170. Let's take a quick break here, and we'll come right back to you after these quick messages. Stay tuned, folks.
Water. Why the fuck you fog out my window every morning?
God damn it, water! Water. It comes in 3 styles: hot, cold, lukewarm. Water. Have you ever been sitting there wondering why I'm so thirsty? Water.
You literally need it to live.
Water.
Water. You can put it in balloons and throw it at people who walk by your house.
Water. The possibilities are endless. God dang it, I love to shop, but I hate me some people. What am I ever gonna do? Shop Amazon.ca if you love to shop but hate people. Thank you, Amazon.
Oh, shit. Horses. Some people ride them.
Have you ever wanted to talk to somebody, but they were too far away and you couldn't yell? Cell phones. Talking to people at far distances since 1818. I don't know if that time is right. And we're back, folks. I hope you enjoyed our messages. Thanks for still sticking with us and tuning in. With all the MMA out of the way, the other thing that really took all my time this week was Fallout 76 being released. My once again amazing, beautiful, awesome wife got it the day before for me, so I had it locked and loaded, ready to play. But I didn't call in sick for work. That's how tough I was mentally. I didn't call in sick for work. And I played it very gleefully afterwards. Great game. I can't say enough about it. I've only kind of scratched the surface, obviously, just playing it. It always just brings me such a journey when you play those opening credits on Fallout. Always really means a lot to me, from the first game to what it is now. Just love the Fallout series. My number one game with a fucking bullet. So you're going to sit down and you're going to listen to me talk about it. And stay a while and listen. But war never changes, man. It's love the series. War never changes, man. It's awesome. Always brings chill down my spine when you first hear it on the first new game. Love it. They've stuck with the catchphrase from number one. Really was a game that I had no clue about. I had a bunch of buddies of mine had played it on PC. Yeah, we're talking like old school shitty PCs. And the thing about the game was it really scared a lot of people away, because the beginning was super hard if you didn't know what you were doing, and they tell you nothing right off the bat. So it was that's why it was one of those first survival games ever. But just the communicating with people, number one, picking your shit, going through the whole thing. And I thought that's the best part about Fallout, is that it always had these different moments that you would choose from, like different dialogue you could pick or different things you could do that would affect what would happen to you down the road of the game. This game came out in 1997, and it had like so many different possibilities of how to play it. First one I played the fuck out of. I just played it so much, front to back, all the way through. The shitty thing about the first one, it didn't have the drugs you have in the second one. And that's what made Fallout 2, was they really expanded. Always the worst thing about people, what they do when they have a sequel to their video games, they change everything. That's what they didn't do. They didn't do that. A perfect example of a game ruining their own franchise was the Fable franchise. Every single game was different, too different, in fact, that it kind of killed it. First one to the second one to the third one. The second one was really good. The third one was totally different from both first or second game, and it totally destroyed the whole franchise. You never saw another Fable game after that. No one was clamoring for Fable because the third one fucked up the whole series. Perfect example of a game that did do that good would be Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars, the first one, original Xbox, to the second one. Amazing game as well. I really loved the second one. They really added a lot, and that's what the Fallout series always did as well. They always added to that little bit of what made the first part great, and the second one was awesome with Sulik. You had more of having a team with you of dudes, and what that entailed for them helping you out, doing different things. Like you get the guy who invented Jet. I can't remember his name. It was like Marmin or something like that. Marmin. And he was really good in science and shit. And he had like a syringe gun too. Sulik obviously was the coolest, I think, of all time when it came to a buddy character for any video game. Sulik was the best. It really helps you out in the beginning because Fallout 2 was super fucking hard right off the bat too. Super hard, but you were like more of a tribal person. You were a descendant of the first Vault Dweller. That's what's cool about it, is how time always progresses in these games. Different areas, different timelines. Just it's all after the war. So the story is wide open and endless with that. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Brotherhood of Steel game. That was kind of like the third game out for PC that came out. It was more of a strategy game. I did enjoy it. It was fun. It wasn't like an open world like the first two, where it was more like a strategy shooting game. And I liked it for that. It was done very well, but it wasn't the same type of thing. There was one actually that came out, which was more popular, and I think it was the Brotherhood of Steel one that was also on Xbox as well, and it was a ton of fun. It was kind of like that Boulder Gate feel. Amazing game when it came to that as well. That was a really, really fun one too. The games are endless, and then obviously the way they changed it, like I touched base on a few shows before, that's the reason why I got Xbox, was because Xbox, the 360 was the console that had Fallout 3. Only reason why I got the system and why I've stuck with Xbox, because Fallout is my game. So when that came out, that changed everything. I thought that was the first person shooter way of it. It really, really worked well with Bethesda coming over and buying it, because I love Skyrim and the Elder Scroll, just not Elder Scroll Online. I love the Elder Scroll series as well. So to say you're going to bring in all the dynamics of Fallout onto that platform, it works super easily. A game where you can shoot and RPG, open world. The thing I didn't like about Fallout 3 was the subway system. You get hit and misses. I don't like the subway system. It was too much subway walking. There wasn't enough open walk. I can understand that place got bombed to shit, but it wasn't very fun. The one I loved the most was New Vegas. I think New Vegas was probably my favorite one. I really played the shit out of New Vegas. It had a lot of fun. I love the map for it. And the storyline, I think, was really, really cool with it, too. I think there was one where the storyline was super awesome. It was twist after twist, and you could choose your factions in that one, which I really always loved. You can be the bad guy in Fallout. You can be a good guy in Fallout. You can be right down the middle of the road and just play the story. And that one was kind of like the last one where we saw that, where you could be a bad person and still do good in the game. Like, still make it. Usually when you have that bad guy, you come back and you don't converse with people or do anything, like we've seen in number 2 when you became a slaver. You had a tattoo on your forehead, so you couldn't play the rest of the game. All you could do was just slave people. And that brings us to Fallout 4, the game before this one, which was a really good game. The building maybe was a bit too much, but it was a great game too. And really, I played a lot of it just before Fallout 76 came out, and it was different with the building. I enjoyed. You can build the bases. I didn't like the whole Minutemen thing where you're constantly saving people and everyone's always in trouble from attack. That was kind of an annoying part. But once again, you saw where you could do 3 different missions, 3 different endings for 3 different people. You could go for the Brotherhood, go for the Minutemen, or you could go for the people who saved the robots, where the fuck their name was. And that brings us to Fallout 76. Great game. I really love what they've done with it. I was a little bit worried on the beginning if they were going to make it kind of like Elder Scroll Online. I was kind of curious because it had a lot of bad reviews. I was kind of just blocking everything out. I wanted to make my own choice. Obviously, I'm super biased and I'm going to love it, but I wanted to make it my own choice. So I didn't read anything, And going into it, I loved it. I loved it. I was a little bit worried because in the first scene, you don't really get to pick anything up, and that's what always what Fallout's been about, the treasure hunting. I think that's what I love about it the most. The treasure hunting in the game is awesome, and they have those little treasure hunting spots, so it makes it a little handy to find treasure in certain areas, and certain enemies give you tons of treasure. So I was glad that worry was put to ease soon after leaving the vault. And you can grab tons and tons of shit. Too much, in fact, where I'm always over encumbered as always. It wouldn't be a true Fallout game if it didn't glitch out on me, and it sure the fuck has done it twice now. It's glitched out hardcore, and I've had to restart my whole fucking Xbox, you know what I mean? But it wouldn't be a Fallout if it didn't glitch out. Every Fallout has glitched out. From 1 to 2, you got to save often. if that's one thing I can tell people, if you're going to play 1, 2 on PC, save often, because the game crashes. It crashes. You don't want to be like an hour in and the game crashes and all that shit you've done is lost. I like they got some new enemies, they got some new guns. I like how they went back to the way you craft your weapons, and you're breaking down weapons to fix the same weapon. I like how they've done that. Pairing is easy. Just everything. The shooting dynamic, blocking works now. The enemies are actually quite good. I think the whole shooting, I went with melee. I went with a strength heavy guy because then you can, it's easier to open shit. I haven't come across any, you know what I mean? I need this certain amount of strength. That's always been in Fallout 2, how it's always been your choose old adventure type thing, because you only have so many points you can distribute. So especially in the first 2, you come up against a door, you need 8 strength to open this door. If you don't have high strength, you'll never open that door, and you have to move on about the game, right? But you may come across a spot where that's the opposite. What you have works for that. So next time you'll play the game through, that's why I played it so much. Next time you play the game through, you'll play with a guy who has tons of strength. You open that door, you get what's inside. It's treasure hunting to its fullest. Treasure hunting RPGs have just been my MO my entire life. Just love the fucking games, and they did good. It is a little bit MMORPG, obviously. It has to be, with how enemies respawn. And I thought you only lost caps if you died, but I quickly learned that wasn't the case. I did get owned. I was only like level 7, and like 2 dudes. One guy was like level 19, another guy was like level 17, came and just killed me. And you carry everything you scrap, all the shit you scrap down, you carry in a bag. So when you drop that, when you die, all my shit got looted. When it came to my scrap items, I learned a lesson that you can keep your shit and other stuff, but it's a big game. I can tell that. What I did like was the kind of like these little event missions you do. I think that kind of keeps the game really fresh, and it keeps all these extra points, which it's always been about exploring, and you want to explore the spots. But when you're at that spot, you get these little events that come up, and certain different things happen. You have to kill dudes or fix something by finding parts around that same building, and then fixing a computer, or then defending something, or just killing three of something in a spot. You don't like the MMORPG, but the way they've done it with these events is really cool. And the items you get from those events, those quick little events you're doing, as well as your main missions, really was a nice touch. I really do love that part about it. It's always keeping it fresh. I'm constantly doing missions, and I'm just fine. I'm constantly doing shit all the time. They really made it so the one slow part in Fallout, where I think that's what maybe people complained about, was you got to make your own stuff. You got to know what you're doing, know where you're going, know what your main goal is. If you're kind of just aimlessly wandering around, the game may be boring to you. And I think that's what they're kind of pushing you in a direction. I love that they have done that. All in all, obviously, I'm going to give the game an A fucking plus. It's super biased opinion, and I can't wait to play more of it. I can't wait to see what else they bring to the table. Having it in an MMORPG, it is a bit weird. I've had a lot of positive experiences with our players, but like I said, I did get killed for no reason. All that, I expected that. I wasn't shocked when that happened. That's for damn sure. Can't wait to see it. Great game. Love the Fallout series. Touch base on a little bit more of it down the road. Did get my new phone. Talk about a little electronics. It's super sweet. Samsung, you've done it again. Good phone. Technology these days, we're far too spoiled. Human beings as a whole. Let's talk some wrestling. Round the show out with some wrestling here, since it is Survivor Series coming up in a few hours. Super excited for it. I guess we knew we were going to see some shit go down with all the shuffle on Raw. Shuffling of all these injuries and everything going on. Braun Strowman flexing his muscle with destroying the Battle Royale in the beginning. I wanted to kind of see that Battle Royale to decide the tag team captains of Survivor Series. But Stephanie comes down, big move for Stephanie for the Survivor Series, and gives Strowman what he wants with the letting Baron Corbin get these hands. Get these hands. And then also give him a title shot too, which he deserves too, I think, because he got screwed over obviously by Corbin. But all obviously depends on how he behaves at Survivor Series, so we'll see what happens. Obviously, the teams are super stacked for Raw, looking on paper, against the SmackDown team, obviously. Tamina and Nia, it works. They work together, but their rivalry with Ember Moon does not. I don't know where they thought this idea came out of. I don't know how they were thinking this is a good idea, but I don't know why they're attacking Ember Moon. Ember Moon should be doing something else on her own. They're too good to be tying up all those teams. The writing's got to do something about it. I like the Ambrose promos that we had just talked about on the last show, about how Undertaker had been doing these cool promos. Here we see Dean Ambrose do a really cool one with like a car and like a burning barrel outside, and he, symbolically burns his Shield vest and throws it into the fire, and I think he's obviously done with the Shield, I guess. The Shield reunion is always kind of the most recent one I thought was a bit forced, and obviously they obviously knew why now. But it was a good promo. Balor versus McIntyre works. If they want to, they gotta work Finn Balor in here somehow. The guy's too good to be in the middle of the card. I think he's just such a great performer. Obviously his downfall is his size, but I think he makes up for it with his tenacity. And the end, though, obviously is the big news of what happened. I love the invasion angles of the SmackDown girls invade Raw, and all we see is camera goes to the backstage, and it's Becky Lynch, and she's armbarring Ronda Rousey backstage, and she's like hurt, and they're getting her off, and then Becky Lynch, because she's not on the Monday, she's on the Tuesday show, so it's cool because they're going to be fighting each other, Kelly. So she goes to the ring, and there's the Raw team is announced, and then they all get jumped by the SmackDown team. But the hugest news is Nia Jax, who's injured many girls before, just fucking plows Becky Lynch like with a super hard punch, like obviously by accident, but it didn't look like an accident from the angle I was looking, man. She just cranked her like super hard in the face, as hard as she could, and Becky's nose explodes. It's like tons of blood everywhere, and she still has to continue. Like whole thing is on her. She's like the main actor of this whole thing going on right now. So she just gets cranked and has to continue. So she has to still wrestle a little bit, and then she goes out and has this big moment at the top with her nose and her hands are just covered in blood. And she has this huge thing where she puts her hands up. I thought, what a moment for Becky Lynch. And huge moment. One of the toughest. Becky is here. And it brought shiver down my spine of what a moment for Becky. And it's shitty that she can't perform. She broke her orbital. Got her orbital bone broken. She got punched so bad. She's off Survivor Series. So that was like probably the most anticipated match in my eyes. And a lot of people I was talking to, I was actually really for Becky Lynch to go up against Ronda Rousey. They both have an armbar type move. It was kind of a cool match. It had a lot of hype. They both had built it up so good because Becky's so bad right now. I thought it was tale of the girl who just showed up and got the belt to a tale of a girl who's worked her butt off as a wrestler from the minor leagues all the way up. So you had that big clash. That fight is off, unfortunately, because of the mistake made by Nia injuring another girl as well to add to her list. I hope Alexa isn't injured. I think she's obviously going to be in the match. We'll find out later on, but I hope Alexa isn't. They aren't going to substitute Alexa to be injured and to have her, because she ran from the team and everything like that. On to SmackDown Live. Paul Heyman comes out and saves AJ. AJ, man, we need the Bullet Club more than ever. Your talking is getting terrible. The stuttering, he had a bad stuttering moment. It was really, really rough. I love AJ. He's probably one of the best in-ring performers in the world, bar none. But he cannot talk. He's not the best talker. And I don't know why they keep doing the AJ promos. But it was awesome that Paul Heyman comes out, but I knew it. I fucking knew it. As soon as he mentioned how Brock Lesnar would rather go up against Daniel Bryan, I knew something was going to go down, and somehow Daniel Bryan was going to get the match. And sure the fucking enough, they announced that it's going to be AJ versus Daniel Bryan for the title on SmackDown. Right then I was like, fuck, they're going to make AJ lose the goddamn belt just so it can be Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series. And obviously, sure enough, as later on in the show, it happened. Of course, super shocked by the move. I'll get to it here in a little bit. But I don't know how Andrade, Cien Almas versus Jeff Hardy keeps getting another dream match for him. This is Andrade, man. He's really getting it, and deservedly so. He's grown on me huge as one of the new best in-ring performer. Guy, he's got the size, he's got the ability, he's got the strength. Obviously, he's got 0.0 mic skills, but I don't think that's going to matter. I think it's working for him. That's always been my knock on him, is that will keep him back, not being able to talk, but I think he's going to make it. I think he's going to make it with this. I was a huge critic at first, but Andrade is really growing on it. Cien he's really starting to turn my head, and I'm really enjoying his matches. He gets another good match, and what's cool is he's losing to these legends. I think he just wants to wrestle them, and I think that's very, very respectful of him to give them their moments as well. Another great match against Jeff Hardy. Amazing match. So then, Kelly, they have to have Becky. They can't just cancel the match altogether. So Becky comes to the ring and has to name who's going to replace her. And of course, it's an easy. They pick Charlotte Flair. Super emotional moment for Becky, and I think she's just going to be so over when she comes back. She's only going to be gone for probably like a few weeks or something, but she's going to be so over when she comes back too. But like as I said before, of course, what was weird I didn't expect was Daniel Bryan to turn heel a little bit with a nut kick on AJ Styles and win the title. I didn't see that coming. We got the heel Daniel Bryan, and then he beats him up a little bit afterwards. The shuffle continues. That's all I got to say. The shuffle continues with the injuries they've had right now. The writing crews are really don't know what to do, and they're just rolling the dice here. Obviously, it makes a bit more sense, than just with it's not going to be Becky versus Ronda anymore. They had to do another marquee matchup they didn't want to see. No one wanted to see Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles, and Brock Lesnar beat AJ Styles again. No one wanted to see that. I think with Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar, obviously, it's a bit more of an interesting match, losing the biggest match, obviously, with Ronda versus Becky. Obviously, Ronda versus Charlotte's going to be okay, but it doesn't have those implications that those other girls had built up. It's going to be a good match. I don't know if Ronda has the chops to hang with Charlotte. It's going to be interesting. But it's just crazy to think WWE right now have both their main stars are out right now with Becky and Roman Reigns, two of the most over wrestlers who had fought so hard. They had the most steam. All that steam has just been cut off, but I think you bottle it. It doesn't just dissipate into the air. That gets bottled, and when those guys come back, that steam gets released again, and they are going to get so much hype when they come back. Both of these injuries, obviously, with Roman Reigns, obviously, but with Becky, especially right now, it's going to really put her over the top with how popular she is. She is so fucking popular right now. It is crazy. I'm seeing tons of Last Kicker shirts now out there. But before, she was always a fan favorite, but you didn't really see her merchandise. I'm seeing a lot of her merchandise out there. I watched a little bit of Survivor Series 1995. It was a really cool one. I want to do a little bit of a breakdown first, getting into that, just the breakdown on Survivor Series. The one coming up 2018, but the 1995, man, it was a really, really cool, just so cool going back in time watching those events. Obviously the 10-on-10 tag team elimination match, I really like that match. Open it up, it's 20 guys is going to be interesting. They're going to have some kind of shit with the amount of talent they have in there. You're going to see some kind of cool acrobatic crap. Tag team match with AOP versus the Bar. That's a good match for both those guys. I think hopefully AOP can come out with showcasing some of their skills and not injure any of the Bar. Let's just hope we see that. The 5-on-5 women's match is going to be a good one too. Obviously with a little bit of heat we saw. Mickie James, Nia Jax, Tamina, Natalya, and Ruby Riott versus Alexa, Liv Morgan, Sarah Logan, and then she's just with them. And then SmackDown team was kind of interesting since Charlotte's gone, so now they have a mystery SmackDown person they're going to announce. Hopefully it'll be Kairi Sane. I think that makes sense right now. Like I said, all these women from NXT are going to have to come eventually, and I think this is a perfect fit for her to have her in her Survivor Series match. And even in the 1995 Survivor Series, what I saw was it was a women's Survivor Series match, which was cool. Lunder Blaze was in charge of one team, and it was a lot of women from Japan, because obviously the roster, they had no roster back then for women wrestler, and so it was like all these women from Japan, and some of them had some amazing moves for 1995. I was super impressed. It was actually a really good match. Who they announced that leaves a little bit of intrigue. And then obviously the 5-on-5 Survivor Series match with Team Raw versus Team SmackDown. I obviously have to give it to Raw. You know what I mean? You got just, you got Braun Strowman on your team. I think it'd be pretty silly if they lost. I don't see them losing. The girl Smackdown team one will probably win, and then the Raw men's team will probably win. You heard it here first, folks. And then we obviously got Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins versus Nakamura, and Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair. Should be ramp up to a great show. I'm excited to watch it later on today with the fam. It's going to cut into my Fallout time. That's the only thing. It's a long event. It's like I think it's like 5 hours. Obviously, you can fast forward through some of it, but still. Great show. Great show. Loving the show. Covered a lot of shit. A lot of shit on MMA. You didn't get up to anything this weekend, Kelly?
No, just working.
Working for the man. Yeah, then I didn't get to, just kind of wanted to chillax and play video games. It was nice weather, so I was going to say like, hey, let's go fishing or something, but it was I just wanted to play Fallout. Just like in classic Fallout fashion, it tends to just want to sap any time that you have. Yeah, well, I guess that brings us to the end of the show. Great show, show number 11 in the books. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. To all the people who are listening that we don't know, thank you for tuning in. I will hope to get a Twitter up soon so you can tell us your thoughts. Tell us if we suck. You go right ahead. Let me hear it. Tell us if we're good, especially. Talk about shit you want to talk about. And if you got an argument, bring it on. Bring it on. Well then, folks, speaking on behalf of Kelly the producer extraordinaire, my name's Steven. You've been listening to the new podcast. Signing off.